on, everybody? Welcome back to the Let's Talk Live podcast. It is Sunday, fun day, right?
Yeah.
Right, Primo? Is it Sunday?
I was just hanging around in the studio here, and all of a sudden it came on. We're gonna have a show tonight.
We're gonna do a show tonight. We're gonna do a show. We're gonna do a show, and we actually have a really kick-ass guest this evening. I'm really happy to have him over on the channel, and his name is Jeff Frumess. He is a YouTube creator, streamer, filmmaker, and a Misfits, Samhain, Danzig historian, super geek nerd. Like, I have so many questions for him.
So you're saying he's got skills? He
got skills. He got skills. Well, let's bring Jeff in.
Yeah, let's do it.
Live from the car. What's going on, man? How
What's
are
up?
you?
Whoa! I'm just trying to drive here. I was going to do a much raunchier intro, and then I wasn't sure if you could cuss on the channel, so I didn't do it. But I had something planned. It was going to be so ridiculous, and then I decided to just do that little thing that I just did. So
we're wide open. It's freedom of speech over here on the Let's Talk Live.
I want to see who has the better challenge to demonetize us beforehand, because Brian usually beats us to the punch. So if you can do one better than him, Lord. Golden.
No, I was just I was just going to be silly and use vulgar language, and decided, you know what, you didn't talk to these guys about it beforehand, so
it's
bummer.
Fine.
Just be yourself.
That's a good excuse to have you on next time, so we could do it then.
Okay. Sounds good.
Jeff, welcome to the channel. Welcome to Let's Talk
you.
Live. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us this evening. I think this is a first for us, live from a car.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. That's the way you got to make content when it's time to make content.
That's right.
That's it.
We got our first super chat this evening from Motion VIP with a $5 super chat. We'll give him a bell for that one. Thank you so much.
Am I getting pulled over? Let's find. Oh, no, never mind. They're after somebody else. Whoa. Did you guys see that?
Yeah, I did.
That was awesome.
Welcome to New York, right?
I was like, damn, did not recognize how fast I was driving. Oh, I just totally, this guy's tailgating me in the fast lane.
Be careful, man. We don't want to have any accidents.
Know, right?
I am okay. We're doing okay. Go ahead.
So, Jeff, I've been following your YouTube channel for quite a while now. I'm in your Facebook group as well. They came from Lodi. And, super cool stuff. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what got you involved in film and music. Like, what age started you really getting involved in that?
Well, I mean, I always was just a passionate, movie watcher, TV show watcher, whatever. I was a passionate consumer of media, going back to, as early as I could remember. And, even growing up, would have the VHS camcorder and would, make little home movies and whatnot. But I decided that I wanted to really take it seriously, try and tell stories. My 18th, right after my 18th birthday, all my friends went away to college, and I was 4-year college, and I was stuck at home at community college, and I was watching a documentary about Kevin Smith making Clerks, and I just had this epiphany in my head. I just said, that's what I want to do. That's what I love. I love movies, and I like telling stories, and I want to tell stories. It was like it was like an epiphany. It was like a grand realization, and it was a long road to, even attempting to do it. I'm still on that road, of course, but it's just like one day you just decide you want to do something and that you're going to try and do it, and that's it.
Yeah, totally, man. Yeah, and it's cool because I found myself kind of in that as well too. I started at music at a very early age. I started playing in bands when I was 12, and I was always very creative, within our band, coming up with concepts and art and doing t-shirts and playing shows all the time, and looking at my mom and going on a Friday night, hi mom, and I'd leave and come back on Sunday at 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. Hi mom, getting ready for school the next day on Monday and stuff like that. And and just kind of following us over into the, always just being creative and, being an artist and kind of just jumping on and doing this YouTube thing now. And I think a lot of us that are, those creators having this outlet now to come on and start our own channels has been like a fantastic thing. So let me ask you about some of the film projects that you've been involved with. And do you have any current projects that you're working on now? Oh no, I think he froze.
Yep, he froze.
He frozen.
Yep.
See if we can get him back.
There you go. See, it's just, I think it's visual. We got
Hold on.
We got you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought it was on your end. Okay. No, I'm here. Just keep going. I've dealt with this myself many a time. You just hang tight until it passes. Go ahead. I'm listening.
Yeah, cool. So can you tell us about any of the current film projects you've been doing, or just talk about some of the past film projects you've done?
Okay. I started the big one that I've been working on for years and years and years is a feature-length documentary about the Misfits. Mm-hmm. And that all started when I was in college. Well, eventually I transferred from that community college to a 4-year school, an art college in Chicago called Columbia College in Chicago. And I started interning, PAing, assisting, whatever you want to call it. I was the assistant editor. I was helping this guy make a documentary about George Romero called Dead On, The Life and Times of George Romero. It still has not come out. Oh, you've seen it?
No, wait, I've seen
the trailer, maybe. You haven't seen it. Nobody's seen the movie.
Yeah, the trailer.
Wow.
I haven't seen a cut of that movie in many, many, many years. However, they knew I was a big Danzig fan, Misfits Samhain Danzig fan, and so they gave me the Glenn Danzig interview to transcribe. And as I'm transcribing the interview, this is probably 2007, 2008, and I'm going, no one's ever done this, because this movie just had all these people just talking about George's life.
Yeah. I
was like, no one's ever done this for the Misfits. And that's not true. People have tried to do this for the Misfits. It just never works out. And I said, you know what? A lot of those guys are just hanging out. Like, I should try emailing some of them. And and I'd say about a year and some change later, I started emailing people and just being like, hey, you want to do an interview? And some of them gave me the runaround. Some of them said no. And one said yes, Mr. Jim.
Yep.
From the Static Age.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Jim was my very first yes. And I took my last $200 and I invested in a lavalier microphone from B&H in New York City. It was my last $200. And I said, is this really something that you're going to stick with or do? Because this is, you're kind of broke.
You've already invested. Now you're dedicated, right?
So, that 200, it's funny, that lavalier, the lavalier eventually broke down, but I still use pieces of it today. Like, that's funny. Pieces from that kit are still in my kit. I just did an interview the other, yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah. Yesterday I did an interview with a piece from that kit, but that mic, I must've done over 100-something interviews. I traveled all over. I traveled everywhere with that lavalier microphone. I ended up going to Europe with it. I ended up going to across the United States with that microphone. So it's a kind of if you're afraid to take the plunge, just take the plunge. Don't wait around. I had a lot of adventures with that lavalier microphone. So
Motion VIP saying Jeff's a very creative on horror stories. Right. Awesome to see him with you guys this evening. Thanks, Motion. Appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a good full moon. And then from there I just started getting more guys, then Bobby Steele and Francescoma, and I started to get to know these guys. And it's funny, so much of like who I am and people that I know and communities that have opened up to me have come about because of that documentary. And then, what happened was I started to, I reached a plateau, I guess maybe you would call it, not a plateau. I kind of hit a wall where I felt like I needed to get bigger interviews because I had these aspirations of being the definitive documentary, which means I need to have everybody who's anybody in this movie, apart from Glenn, Jerry, and Doyle, who I always assumed would never I assume that the movie would probably be better without them because everybody has a very particular hilt and point of view. Mm-hmm. And I always felt like, I want to hear from the guys that we've never heard from, tell the story. And the other reason, and the other being that, I just don't know if I just, I don't want to mess with those guys. I just want to do this quietly. And I kept it off the internet forever. And I reached a wall, though. I wasn't getting my expectations weren't being met. I got very disillusioned and disappointed. And I decided to put the project on ice. I told myself I wasn't going to give up, but I just need to do something else. And then an opportunity came up to tour with this punk band. They were breaking up, and to tour with them across Europe and across the United States. And so I did it. And that band was called Blitzkid, who are very big in the horror punk community, I guess.
They did a split 7-inch with the Misfits, didn't they? They do some.
No,
I thought the new Misfits did, or
no.
Okay, all right.
They have there's a lot of bad blood, or there's some bad blood. It's complicated. Not really my place to talk about it, but I don't think. Cool. Yeah. No, I don't think that I don't think that they'll be doing any splits with those guys anytime soon.
Got it.
So I shot an entire documentary project for those guys, and then that project fell apart as well. And then I started working on my first feature-length narrative film, and that's my first movie. It's called Romeo's Distress. We won some awards.
Nice.
I got to see it play at the Alamo Drafthouse.
Wow.
Which was a dream because I always go to the Alamo Drafthouse, so to see my movie on the big screen in the cathedral of worship that I adore so much was such a validation of the hard work, and I was very happy about it. And now I'm back to work on the Misfits project. The Misfits reunited. I got in touch with Manny, the very first drummer, and that put a lot of wind in my sails, and I started talking with him, and as a matter of fact, I was literally seeing the Misfits live at Riot Fest in Chicago, and he called me. I had left a message for him, and he got back to me, and I was like, this is a sign. This has to be a sign. So I went out and I interviewed him, and have just sporadically continued to do interviews. I just did an interview with Roger Merritt from Agnostic Front. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
wow, kings of the hardcore, of New York hardcore. That was a really big get. Roger is also in that Lodi group, and he's a big Misfits fan, and he was so nice and what's the word I'm looking for? Accommodating. He's in his hometown. Everybody wants to talk to him because he's Roger Merritt.
Yeah,
and he's like, he hopped out of the van, super tired. Hopped out of the van. It's like, all right, let's go do this. So we did an interview for 40 minutes. I was like, just really nice. And
you've done stuff with Steve Zing. I know you've done stuff with him, and you've talked to Damien before. I know that's not Misfits, it's Samhain, but
I mean, those guys.
All those guys
but they're big Misfits fans.
Yeah,
and they're part of the family tree. I feel like if you've been in a band with Glenn Danzig, it's like being in the mafia.
Yeah,
you're a made guy, and it's funny. I saw Steve at a Danzig show. I said, hey, man, I want to email you. I got some stuff I want to talk to you about. And I don't know why he did, but he gave me his email address. That's awesome. I sent him an email, told him about my project, and he said, I want to see your footage. Yeah. And I was like, oh, man, I didn't have anything cut together.
Yeah.
So I started cutting all this stuff together. I had no idea. I'm like, this guy is the bass player of Danzig. This is huge. I got to get this guy in my movie.
Mm-hmm.
I sent him, I made the reel just for him.
Oh,
nice.
Wow.
I sent it to him, and he's like, all right, I'll do the interview.
Oh,
and I was like, yes.
Yeah.
I was like, yes. So I went over to his house, and of course, he has the coolest collection of shit ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he has the 57 Gretsch hollow body that belonged to George Germain that was used on Horror Business and American Nightmare.
Oh, God.
Wow.
He has he showed me some cool stuff, he just showed me a lot of cool stuff. And I'll never forget, he goes, check this out. And it's like a bat dipped in wax, framed. he's like, this was a housewarming gift from Glenn. I was like, of course, Glenn Danzig would give you a bat dipped in wax.
Right.
That's so awesome, man. That's so awesome.
So that was a great get. And then, yeah, I also interviewed Damien, but then I had both of them on the show, but I knew them because of the documentary.
Right.
And
it's cool
Damien's great.
It's cool how, you have a vision, you put a project together, and you start putting it into fruition, and then how it opens so many doors and through all that process. And it must make you feel so good that all that hard work and the time that you've been putting into doing this, and now you're actually be able to reach out and have conversations with these guys. And I mean, I know that you've done stuff with Steve like in person, which is really cool. And that's just, it must be so wild. Like you're like, I'm listening to these guys as a kid, and now I'm sitting next to this guy, and he's like showing me all this cool shit in his house. Like, that's so cool, man. That's really cool.
Well, Steve said to me, he was like, I want to make a music video. And I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So I shot a music video for him. Yeah, I was like, sure. Because I do, that's what I do music videos sometimes. People ask me to. I did one with Dr. Chud. I was just talking about with this guy over here who was with me when it happened. It was
that's awesome.
Crazy, horrible experience. A story for another day. But yeah, no, it was we had a great time doing it. And the next time that Steve needed a music video for his new album, for his solo project, Black 29, is coming out on Cleopatra Records, which is, of course, they put out Danzig Sings Elvis and the new Morning Noise thing as well. And there's some really cool guests. I don't know if I'm allowed to say who's in the music video yet.
Yeah.
But let's just say you're going to recognize all three of them. Cool. And it's a really cool song. Okay. Maybe did he say it? I'm trying to remember if he said it or not. I just don't want to say it, and then it's like supposed to remain a surprise. But we're waiting. I'm waiting for the video is all done. I sent it to him, and he's happy with it. So we did another music video, and it's so cool. And he's got this crazy studio down there. It's called Trick or Treat. He's got these Samhain pumpkins on the monitor speakers, and he's awesome, man. He's just so awesome. He's so such an awesome dude. And I'll tell you something, Steve, maybe he wouldn't want to identify as this, but he's just as big of a fan of the Misfits as us. He's just a huge Misfits fan. He loves the Misfits. He loves talking about maybe he doesn't always talk about this, but you know what I mean. Right. He knows he's a guy who could talk a thing or two about the Misfits because he was around.
Yeah. He was around all those guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that group is pretty much like, and I don't want to say a small circle because it's kind of big, but they all kind of just know each other, like chain of people that knew each other, right? All the guys that were all in the different bands and stuff like that, or
I mean, most of them come from Lodi. A lot of them were in the class of '82. So Doyle, Chud, Steve, Pete. And who am I forgetting? Doyle, Chud, Steve, Pete, and maybe and Erie, of course.
Right.
All those guys were class of '82, and they were all in the same high school class. They all knew each other and whatnot. Although, Chud was like kind of like a jock. He was into like new wave music. He didn't start doing any of that stuff until Jerry and Doyle approached him, when they were doing Christ the Conqueror to like, it's this kind of little, it's kind of a little bit of an act, I would say, on some level. Right. But those other guys were like punks in high school. And back then, as they always tell me, this is not my experience to share. This is what was told to me. Back in the day, if you were a punk, that could get the crap kicked out of you. Yep. You could get beat up for being a punk.
Yeah, and that's like how we were in high school. Like I graduated in '96. We were like the metalhead, punk rocker metalhead guy, and I'm sure everybody went through that in high school. We were the outcasts, and then if the jocks came by, or they would kick the shit out of us. And,
yeah, but those tropes that you see in high school movies about the junk and the punk and the jock and the punk and the blah blah blah.
Right.
That stuff was all real in like the '80s and the '70s, at least in terms of music like that. And then what happened was, just to clarify, as it was told to me, because this is not my experience and I was not there, I'm sharing this as you called me a historian. I share this as a historian.
Right.
Those jocks who used to beat up on the punk kids, they got into hardcore.
Yeah.
And when they got into hardcore, then all of a sudden it was cool to be like, hardcore,
Yep.
hardcore meathead, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't come later until like 80 through 84.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, please. I'm loving this.
No, I
please.
just to say, just to finish up the thing.
Yeah.
And I'm just still, it's a very, very slow process. I'm making the movie by myself, inch by inch. I have a Patreon where I show people outtakes.
Yep.
And we have a lovely little community in the Patreon. And so every month, as I do work on the documentary, I pull out some outtakes and I do a little miniature version of like the YouTube show that you've seen, where I talk about something, or I talk about the experience of like doing the interview, like a little behind the scenes, or explain some connections for, because the thing is, when you shoot hours and hours and hours of documentary style footage, 1 hour of interview might net you to steal you a couple of sound bites that you're going to use. Yeah. You have all this material that's interesting or, just doesn't fit the story. So why not put it into Patreon? So I put it into Patreon. So if you are a hardcore, like I need to know every little ounce of minutia, like scrape the bottom of the barrel, lick the side of the Jello tin sort of guy, then if you check out the Patreon, you will see all sorts of goodies and tidbits and exclusives and early access and that sort of thing. And that's also in an effort that subsidizes the production of the documentary, as well as, I'm trying to, I want this to be my full-time job.
Yeah.
Instead of a full-time job.
We all do.
So we all do, right? It's the dream. Yeah. It's the dream.
Of course. And guys, for everybody in the chat, I've dropped Jeff's YouTube link. You can go over and connect with him.
Thank you.
On the channel. Yeah. Anything you have to plug, man, please plug away. We welcome that here on the channel.
Just check out the Patreon. Check out youtube.com/Frumess. It's right there on my my little thing.
Yep.
And subscribe. And we go live as Brian will tell you. Or Primo will tell you, we go live almost every day. Last week alone, I tallied 18 hours of podcasting, which is extraordinary. No, it's never like that. That was extenuating circumstances. But it was 18 hours of streaming podcasting, 6 hours and 17 minutes of which remains a mystery to everybody who's not a Patreon. But soon, right here? Right behind that car. Hold on 1 second, Jeremy. Good to see you, buddy.
It's cool, man.
Erica,
bye, guys.
See you. Bye. Brian and Primo say goodbye.
Don't forget to tip your Uber driver.
Tip your Uber driver. That's right. Hey, I'm trying to walk over here. All right.
I love it. Jeff, so if I can ask you,
go ahead.
What was it like the first time you heard the Misfits? Like what hit you the first, like when was it, and what was the feeling or that experience when you first heard them?
So my first time hearing the Misfits was Napster. I used to be embarrassed to admit that. Nobody wants to admit that they used Napster, but come on, we all used it, man. Yeah. I don't use it anymore, and I just want to say I am very, very passionately against all of that. And I like to, I've been on an amends sort of streak for the last 10 years. What I do is when I discover a band on Spotify, back when we could go to shows, I'd go to the show and buy a t-shirt and an album at the merch booth. And that was my way of supporting the arts after, spending probably too much time downloading music when it seemed like a consequence-free victimless crime, and it was not. It was terrible thing. But 3 of those tracks that I downloaded were Last Caress, Ghouls Night Out, and Day of the Dead, which is actually a Graves song.
Yep.
But I didn't know that.
The new stuff.
Right.
Yep.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. See, here's the thing.
Right.
I'm also obsessed with Return of the Living Dead, one of my favorite horror films. And we do a lot of Return of the Living Dead content on the channel. And I was on a Return of the Living Dead, remember those tripod tripod pages, like
yes,
Angel Fire. It was like,
dude, I just deleted mine like a month ago. Funny enough.
Oh, why did you do it? Why was it embarrassing?
Dude, they're actually local to us, and the guy that we were messaging him, and he was like, "You really need to take it off because you need to get rid of this, and your people are still on it. So can you do me a favor?" Yeah, it's so weird.
I saw someone who was like, this kid, he was like talking about his hobbies and things, and he's listed his favorite bands.
Yeah.
And the title Misfits kept coming up. And I had heard, I had heard that name. And I thought, what a goofy, like weird sort of name. I kind of thought of the word misfit as like a really sort of silly thing. Not, mind you, this is a word that's not written in any sort of spooky font or anything. It's just the plain Times New Roman font. Misfits. What the fuck is Misfits? Right. So I listened to Last Caress, and that's my first time ever hearing the Misfits. Wow. I got something to say, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Oh my god, this is just unreal. And then I listened to Ghouls Night Out, and I love it. And then I'm listening to Day of the Dead, and I'm like, this is weird. It's like it didn't match up. I didn't understand. Right. Didn't understand why, but I was like, yeah, whatever. You know, I like, by the way, I like those albums mostly. I like most of American Psycho and about half of Famous Monsters, but not as Misfits records. I think it's catchy music, but that's not the Misfits. Yeah, I hate that they use that name, and I've always been vocal about that. But yeah, I didn't mind Day of the Dead. But I kept trying to tell anybody who would listen, oh man, the song Last Caress is so awesome. The DNA shares some DNA with Blitzkrieg Bop, I always thought. You know, that's
what always got me about if you remember Die, 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 My Darling. That was, I don't know why that song would just stick in my head for days. It just
So go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was gonna say, for me, the first Misfits song I ever heard, 1988, I heard Night of the Living Dead off the Walk Among Us album, was the first. And I was just like, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And I think the thing for me was, at the time, I was listening to a lot of like Bad Brains, Minor Threat, a lot of that DC hardcore punk back then. But then hearing something that had all this melody to it, and I'm like, I've never heard anything like this. And then just as it went and went, I was like, holy shit, this is like the greatest album I've ever heard in my entire life. And I'm like,
one of my favorite songs.
Yeah, how are these guys? And then you just, you're looking at the cover and you're seeing the small, and you're like, Jerry with the skull on his bass, and you're like, what is this? Like they look like, creatures from outer space, and it's just like all this interesting thing about it and this aura about it, and you're like, what is this? And back then you didn't have the accessibility to the internet like we did here, so you couldn't see photos. All you had was album art to go off of, and it was just like, and as the years progress, you get kind of little, I call them breadcrumbs. You started to kind of learn a little bit more. Oh wow, like he went on and he went to Samhain, and then Danzig went and made Danzig, and it's just crazy stuff. But that's what always really stuck with me. I never heard that big of a sound out of a punk band. It was always just kind of that flat recording, and here's someone that's bringing in melody and harmonies and just these big vocals, and you're like, holy shit, like this is a punk band. Like this is a punk band. So yeah,
sure. For me, it was just total mythology. Like even as late as even that late, like the only thing that there was around, or at least the most prominent one, was Misfits Central, and which is the resource to everybody. It's like the go-to place for Misfits info. Designed by the great Mark Kennedy, which started off as the Misfits book in 1994. And it used to be like an email chain. Actually, it was the Misfits Bible. It was the Misfits Bible. And there were like these little black and white pictures of these guys. And then I bought collection 1, and I was like, couldn't believe how sort of like shitty recordings were. I don't think they're shitty anymore. I love them, but like at the time I was like, what the, like, you know, but I listened and it just grew on me. And now it just nothing. It feels like the way that, you know, your back of your hand. That's what it feels like to me. I just know it. I know it so well and I love it. And there's pictures, the pictures that you get in the books. Like you said, that's all there was. And I had read the lyrics to Halloween 2 once I got Collection 2.
Mm-hmm.
And my first CD was Collection 1, then it was Legacy of Brutality, and then I think it was Collection 2. And I remember, you know, reading Formulae, Puteris, Nectasis Mortem, Et Communicus, you know, that whole thing.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like, oh man, because it was like they're talking about wolf skin, you know, being in the knot of a tree. I just had this feel. I just like my little brain started going, oh, you know what? They're all werewolves, and every time there's a new band member, they initiate him as a werewolf. They turn him into a werewolf. So I just like in my little imagination, I just thought these guys were all werewolves for some reason.
Yeah.
And that's just the way, like, that's the beauty of like adolescent imagination. You just think things. And that was the little sort of mythology that I had made up in my head. And they just very quickly became my favorite friggin' band. And, you know, I started to email guys when I found email addresses. And, you know, I saw the Undead in 2006 in Tompkins Square Park. Bobby Steele put on a show.
Yeah.
And that's when I first met Bobby.
Mm-hmm.
And so you were there. So
I saw there's a recording of it, correct? Is there a YouTube video of it? I think I've seen.
If it's on my channel, on my channel, that's from 2008. There was a 2006 one, which also might be on YouTube. I might be, I'm not sure. It was just, it was so cool to see. I was like, wow, that's Bobby Steele, the actual Bobby Steele. He was still living on the Lower East Side at the time, and where he had lived for the last 20 something years, pretty much since the Misfit days, mostly. And 20, even longer than that, 25 years, I guess, 20, almost 30 years really. And it was cool, man. It was just really, really cool. And I just started to get to know these guys. I started driving around. I started emailing people and asking them to let me interview them and ask them questions and learn about the story and just banking on. And you know what's so crazy is that 13 of the people I interviewed are no longer with us. From Joey Image to Odorous from Guar to Basil Gogos to John Stab from Government Issue. My good friend Dave Street, talking about like how the Misfits kind of opened up this world to me. I interviewed Dave Street because of his connection with the Misfits. This guy became my very dear friend and would go on to star in 3 of my films. Wow. I mean, we just really got to know him and love him. And he was like my uncle, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And what makes the project, every time someone passes away, it brings on a new sense of urgency that this thing has to get done no matter what happens, because, you know, to honor their memory and capture their essence is captured on these tapes. And, you know, it's gotta happen. It's slow. It's so slow. It takes forever to do this stuff. I'm doing 1,000 things at once in addition to this. So it's slow, but you know, it's not, I'll tell you. And, you know, a lot of people, is it going to have music? The music? No, probably not. I'm never going to be able to license that stuff. No, would probably never approve it. I don't think I'm going to have any videos in it. I don't think I'm going to have any photos in it because I can't afford to license that stuff. And it's a lot of red tape that I would have to deal with the band that I frankly would rather not deal with. So instead, the approach right now that I want to take is, are you guys familiar with Montage of Heck?
Yes, I've heard that.
Right. Yeah. So Montage of Heck is the Kurt Cobain documentary. What I love about it, it's all animation. It's beautiful. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. I want to have, you know, an animation on top of it with illustrations and stuff like that, and really sort of spooky, tonal, ominous music with the interviews and telling the stories. And I have Jerry and Doyle's brother did an interview, and he was there. He was there for so much of that stuff. So, he was there when Doyle cracked the kid over the head with the guitar. He was there when the grave robbing was happening. He saw all that stuff. So, hearing him tell those stories and bring them to life, and then thinking about now I just need to animate this, like Tales from the Crypt style, like the comic book, EC comic book. It'll be perfect. It's just going to take a long time. It's been taking a long time.
So Motion VIP, which is one of my channel members, says, I remember I had a flyer for March 27th, 1982 at Irving Plaza, and I had that because of my cousins.
Wow. That's Beastie crazy. Boys. That's Beastie Boys, Necros, and Misfits.
Yep. And
Eerie Vaughn would have been the drummer for that show. He auditioned and he got in the band. And he, according to him, he auditioned, he got into the band, and decided over the course of the weekend that he'd prefer to stay with Rosemary's Babies, which is his band.
Yep.
And so Todd Swalla from the Necros, who's also in my documentary.
Cool.
He ended up playing the show. He filled in several times whenever the Misfits needed a drummer, which was something that happened quite often.
That's pre Googie, right? Or is that pre Robo?
Trying to think. That is post Googie, pre Robo.
Robo, okay.
Googie left mid '82, and Robo.
The cheeseburger story.
The cheeseburger story is like a myth. It's not super real. Although we did a whole Patreon video about it because I got some comments. Somebody told the cheeseburger story from a perspective with such detail and such seemingly insider baseball knowledge that I absolutely had to quit. I was like, I think this guy was really there. He just had all these details. So I did we did a whole video about it. The cheeseburger thing probably happened on some level, but it's blown into it's turned into this whole thing because of a Jerry Only interview from 1993, this Ugly Things interview that he did where he talked about it. I spoke to Googie on the phone. Really? And I asked him why he left. Yeah. Cool. I spoke to him several times. And one of the times I spoke to him, he told me personally, and I could say that I received this information from Googie himself. He said that I just want to always clarify where the information comes from because I'm clearly not old enough and did not know those guys back then. I'm just talking from a secondhand knowledge. That's it. And just so we're aware.
Absolutely.
He was not happy with the Walk Among Us cover.
They removed his watch.
They removed his watch and they removed his hair.
I actually did a video about that when I was doing Watch Talk. I actually did a video about that. Yeah.
So he told me that's why I wanted to know. What was it? You know what it was?
No, I don't. And that's the
because you're a watch fan. Because you're a watch fan.
Yeah. Do you know? Was it like a Casio or something like that? I'm always curious to find out.
They were just mad that he had a watch on during the thing.
Funny. You can see the outline of it. Yeah.
Sure. Googie was a very stubborn guy, from my understanding, from what people have told to me, and he had blonde hair. He was a misfit within the Misfits, and they said, take off the watch, He wouldn't do it, so they said, "Fuck it, we'll do it ourselves." He hated it, so that was the final straw.
And I always thought it was funny because I always thought he was bald because of the cover of Walk Among Us. And then when you start seeing videos, I see Bookies. When I saw Bookies, I was like, holy shit, that guy actually has fucking hair. It's blonde too.
Well, he would shave his hair from time to time. That was another illuminating thing, because part of that whole downloading, like the time of lawless downloading, eventually I discovered that there was actual footage of the Misfits, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
I was like, because I would imagine, and for some reason, I always imagine that in black and white. I mean, it really didn't happen that long ago from when I was imagining it, but I always imagined it to be like in stark black and white. So I'm like, what is this going to look like? And I downloaded "Why Be Something You're Not," and it was a really shitty version. That's from January of 1983. Yes. Robo's in the band. They're in Kalamazoo, Michigan, I believe, and it's a cable access TV show. Yeah. And And I watched it, and I just could not believe. I was like, there you go. He has it right there on VHS. How old is that copy?
So this, I think I got this in probably right around 1985 when I got these at a. So I got these.
Holy shit!
I got these at like a swap meet, and this was the first time I ever, because 1985 was like right around when you started being able to get like Last Caress and stuff like that. Like I never heard that before that. I mean, I'm sorry, 95.
Oh, 95. I was going to say 95. 85 is very early. Unless you have a copy of Beware or a Static Age tape, you're not going to have Last Caress.
In 95.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I got these at like swap meets. And that was the first time I got this. This has Why Be Something You're Not. It has the Bethlehem, Pennsylvania on it. And it has a copy of the Brain Eaters video that's fucking terrible. Like you could tell it was like like dubbed like 1,000 times. And it's all shaking. You're trying to look, and you're like, "What do these guys look like?" You know?
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Yeah,
it's fun.
Like 95. Yeah,
it's fun. Yeah, dude. It was just so cool to finally like see them, and I would interview people, and they'd be like, "Yeah, you get a VHS," and then you'd watch it, and it would be like all like just like haggard and shredded. Yeah, super shitty. But you still watched it and like kind of make them out. This all added to the mystique. This band is steeped in a mythology, and for some reason, there are two things that people love about the Misfits. One, their story and their mythology is fascinating to anybody, more so than the Ramones, more so than Iggy Pop. Yeah, and their discography, it's because they're so steeped in horror, sci-fi stuff. It's just the perfect combination of everything imaginable. And then the thing that I think that people find so appealing is hello, Laura. The thing that people find so appealing is that, it's kind of the story of the American dream. And what I mean by that is it's people just really getting involved in an art project and just really enjoying it, and trying to turn it into a business and not doing so well, but doing the best that they can, and, creating really cool collectible stuff and cultivating, cultivating a personality that everybody wants a piece of, and ultimately kind of taking over the world with it, subversively through counterculture, because through the Crimson Ghost and other means, it becomes a secret fraternity. If you see somebody else with the Crimson Ghost, they know what's up.
They know.
They know you're on your same wavelength. The same thing with 138.
Yep.
The Simpsons 138th episode.
Yep.
Like, you'd have to imagine there's no way that's not a Misfits reference. What other reason do you have 138? Or, even in the late 80s, when Saved by the Bell happened and Jesse Spano had a Misfits poster in the room.
Oh, you mean this one?
Oh, he's prepared. Yes. I mean that one.
Right?
Yeah. And
then in Toy Soldiers.
Right. In Toy Soldiers.
They had this.
Sure.
The cool thing about that in Toy Soldiers, they actually blacked out the Misfits and Fiend Club. If you go back and look, they just show the Crimson Ghost.
Oh, really?
Poster. Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, what's so cool about it is that, like, it's like you're sitting there watching Saturday morning TV and Jesse Spano's on, and then all of a sudden you walk over and, like, boom, there's the fucking Misfits. You're like, if you're a Misfits fan, you're like, holy shit,
my God,
the Misfits are on NBC. Ah! Everybody gets all excited.
Remember, I don't know if you remember this cartoon, Gem and the Holograms. They had the Misfits.
Yeah, Jerry tried to sue them. Sure,
really?
Jerry. Yep. Jerry tried to. Jerry did not like that they were using the name of the Misfits, and he lost. The court case got thrown out.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I have some. Actually, I have so many questions.
Sure.
Why do you think the Misfits are one of the most bootleg bands? Like, I think ever. It's one of the most bootleg bands ever. There's so much stuff out there. There's so many off pressings, and you don't know what's real, and you don't, like, it's so hard, like, getting into collecting if you even try to collect their vinyl, it's so hard to to really authenticate it now? And why do you think that is? Is it just everybody wants a piece of that? And it's crazy because if you think about it, they only really had, you know, besides the legacy that they're carrying on now, it was only 5 or 6 years of really them, you know, being around until Glenn said, I'm out of here, I'm going to start Samhain. And
7 years.
7. Okay.
Something like that. 6, 7 years, the duration of Star Wars.
Yeah.
77 to 83. What was I just, why so many bootlegs? 2 reasons. One, those records just started to become incredibly valuable. They became valuable, A, for the songs, and B, for the artwork. The artwork was, people loved the artwork. The artwork comes from Glenn Danzig, has these, like, it was like he was trying to do like Warhol styled things. Look at the Who Killed Marilyn and the JFK bullet.
Evil Live.
All of that stuff it's all pop art. Yeah. And it's Glenn Danzig doing his version of pop art. Everything is an artistic statement, whether he did it whether he was half-assed when he was doing it or whether he was super serious when he was doing it. It was all sort of pop art. And then the limited quantities of those records, plus the mythology of the band, plus the band's not around anymore. All of that creates incredibly valuable memorabilia. Then you have people who are collecting this stuff. And every time something with the name Misfits, whether you're into bootlegs or not, and you have collectors who are into bootlegs, and you have collectors, a lot of the real legit collectors don't like bootlegs, or against it. But here's the thing: the moment you put the Misfits name on something, your collection is not complete until you have that thing. Yeah. On some level, you know. And so there are some people who are like, I need to have, you know, the MSP Sessions 1980, vinyl on, you know, red, white, and blue swirled, because and only pressed, you know, to 500, even though it's a complete bootleg. And forget about the fact that the band isn't getting a piece, but just that there's just something about, and the recordings on some of these bootlegs, they come from CDs. Yeah. You're getting bootlegs that are like, you know, they're taken from CD quality, you know, material, or they just sound really shitty, or, you know, they're live records. Basically, people realize that printing Misfits vinyl is essentially like printing money. That's what it is. And so they're heavily bootlegged for this reason. And there are probably, I don't even know, there are hundreds of Misfit bootlegs, and some of them are really cool looking,
and some are really shitty.
Some of them are really shitty, and it's always just the same fucking material over and over and over again. There's only 54 songs, and then there's live shit, whatever live shit's lying around, and, you know, and that's it. They just like it. People like to own it. The records that I have are not real because I don't have, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars, right? I don't have the income to support a habit like that, unfortunately. Right. And but I still like the aesthetic. I like looking at the records. I like spinning the records. Yeah. You know, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the coolest thing, I have like a first press legacy, but I think the coolest thing, I'm very, very into Evil Live. Like, I love the artwork. I love the whole album itself. I love the interaction with the crowd. I think the vocals, in my opinion, are great between Glenn and Jerry on that album, just the melodies. So I'm like super into it. I think the coolest thing that I have is a sealed copy of the green vinyl Evil Live. And it's funny because on the record store, and I think there's only 2,000 of these, they put only 900 copies pressed in green line vinyl, which there's like 2,000, but I thought that was pretty interesting. So
yeah, dude, I mean,
that's kind of my baby.
but I mean, it's that, you know, then there's so much misinformation, man.
Yeah. So much stuff.
That's what they do. There's just so much misinformation. Then you have you have people giving or for instance, people making up names like I guess the song Night of Hate or Die for the Demon, which is like a Danzig demo or something.
Yeah.
That is supposedly, that's not the name of the song at all. It's just bootleggers. And it's not just, this is not just for the Misfits. This is for anyone. Oh shit. Is this closed? Did I not go in here? Oh fuck. You know? I think they're closed. Yeah. Yeah, it's just like they just, people just make up names. They make up, so you get these made up titles, made up names. It's this whole sort of expanded story and culture around the original thing that the band has nothing to do with. And yet people still love it because it's sort of associated with the band and it needs to be collected. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely.
As best as I can.
I have some, man, I have so much stuff. I probably won't get to everything, but have you ever seen, do you know if there's any live videos out there that are not public? Have you ever seen any of that stuff? Any recording, like studio recording footage, live footage, any of the Evil Live? Were there ever any Evil Live footage of the two shows that they did to do the full record? Do you know if there's any of that live footage around?
For Evil Live, as far as I know, well, there was supposedly silent 8mm footage, black and white, in possession of a collector in a tin. Nobody knows what's on it. Supposedly it comes from the Evil Live show. I haven't been in contact with this guy in over a decade. I don't know if it exists. I tried to trade him. I have 3 shirts and I tried to trade him a shirt for a copy of the footage. Not even the footage. I just wanted a copy of the footage. And I don't even know, like, he doesn't even know what's on there, but he supposedly there was something like that. There is Irving Plaza 1979, the Halloween show that was videotaped and it was in the possession of one of the former members of the Misfits for some time. And that supposedly was destroyed, but maybe it still exists. Nobody knows. The first show at CBGB's was the audition showcase. Supposedly that was shot on some crude video. Back then, video wasn't even VHS. It was U-matic tape, which is a thicker, more robust, higher definition tape. But you can't play it obviously in a VCR. You need a special. I mean, that gear just doesn't exist anymore. So you'd have to find someone you have to find a way to transfer it, and that's a problem. A lot of this stuff is stuck on it. I know that Corey Rusk. I had first learned when I interviewed Rocky. He told me that the existence of a Night of the Living Dead video, and then years later, so years later, Todd Swalla starts talking about it. Because I guess he was there. Because forgot was that Corey Rusk, the drummer, the bass player of the Necros, he had shot it on U-matic tape, and that copy of that tape still exists. And it's the Misfits, like in a cemetery, knocking over tombstones and going nuts, and SSD Control, I think. And
what happened to you, Brian?
I don't know. He just barred out.
Second.
That's funny.
He's taking care of something.
Nope. I'm still with it.
Yeah, keep talking, buddy.
Keep talking. I'll be back.
It was the Necros and SSD Control. I think were the two bands.
Give me 1 second.
That were in the music video. I think, and that never came out. And then there's just stuff like that. I'm sort of split because on one hand, I want all of this stuff. I wish all of this stuff was on the internet. On the other hand, people they may not own the copyright to the music, but they might own the copyright of the photograph / video / audio. Yeah. I mean, if you shoot something, you own it.
Right.
There's 2 copyrights there. There's there's the music that's copyrighted. Like, here's the thing. If I shoot a band, a live band, and I want to use that footage and audio of them performing their songs, I need them to sign off because their copyrighted songs are in the footage.
Right.
I also need them to sign off for their appearance.
Yep.
But let's say that they wanted my tape.
Mm-hmm.
I own the copyright of that tape,
right?
Of that footage. I shot that footage. It's mine. I own it. That's how law works. That's how that law works.
Mm-hmm.
So they would need to procure. They either need to buy or license the footage off of me.
Right.
So there's a lot of red tape. So when somebody has something that's super private, it's not just a matter of, hey, let me have that so I can upload it to the internet. It's like, a lot of people, some people stand to make a lot of money if it goes through all the right channels,
mm-hmm.
then they could possibly really benefit off of it. So if someone's an asshole who leaks shit that they have nothing to do with, right. they're really being a dick because, again, people stand to benefit off of mm-hmm. that, whether it's by owning the copyright of the tape or whether it's by what's it called? By being the musician
right.
or subject of the tape, right. One of those two things.
And that's the thing is we live in kind of a TikTok world where people just get stuff and they just throw it out there. So like you were saying, it's probably better that they keep it tight to their chest until, until you release it in a way that's more controllable,
Well, let's take a look at it from literally the standpoint of the Misfits. Let's say someone shot something of the Misfits or, has something of the Misfits. Who owns the copyright to those songs? Glenn Danzig. So, so you can't. So let's say that someone wants to legally put it out. They need Danzig to do it.
Yeah.
You can't just put it out. You need Glenn Danzig in order to make that happen. And what happens is, people, they want what they want, or you never know who's just going to be like, hey, I really want this for my YouTube channel.
Right.
There's a certain level of gray area with YouTube in which a great example was, I saw that Operation Ivy, or at least Tim Armstrong and Jesse Michaels had done a sound system, and I saw people had shot it, but there were all these different angles. So I ripped all the videos and I made my own edit. Now, if somebody who shot that video didn't like that I had it on my channel, they could have it taken down. Yeah. I'd hope they'd ask me first. I didn't exactly ask for permission. I just sort of repurposed everything in a way where I had done something, transformed what they had done.
Right.
And on that level, maybe you could claim fair use because I'm like, hey, I did this myself, or I did this and yada, 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 that kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know. It's just really some of the stuff is ambiguous. Here's something you'll appreciate. This is Glenn Danzig's actual ranch dressing. If you want the full story, I'm not going to tell you the story, but if you want the full story, it's on my channel. Why I have this. I'm not even kidding. It's not a joke. See how it's turned brown?
Yeah,
it's turned brown because I've had it since 2013.
Oh my god!
I'm not kidding. This is Glenn Danzig's.
That's awesome.
Last fucking. Not last. This is that's his dressing.
Wishbone Ranch. There you go.
Real quick,
it's never opened. It's never opened.
I got Motion VIP with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much. We'll give him a bell on that one. This is awesome.
Thank you,
Jeff,
bell.
for taking me to the past, having this great experience with you and with you guys. LTL, Brian, and Primo. Thank you so much. Thanks, Motion. You're awesome. You're always over here watching the channel. We do appreciate it. Jeff, I got some questions about albums and maybe some rumors that you could clear up and stuff. So I always was wondering when the Misfits put together the Walk Among Us album, and I thought this was really odd and obscure, how you had the one live song, Mummy Can I Go Out and Kill Tonight, was on it. Do you think, and I may be wrong and you might have to clear up my timeline, Evil Live, the 7 inches were not out yet, correct? That came after Walk Among Us?
I don't know. They did there was a fan club edition that had 7 songs.
Yep. And
the 7-song version, I don't know if that came out before Walk Among Us or after Walk Among Us. It might have been at the same time, comparable to when Walk Among Us came out.
We got some background noise there. Oh, there you go.
What about now? Oh, yeah, because I was charging my phone.
So I was wondering, like, if that was maybe Glenn's just idea of kind of promoting, like, hey, there's going to be a 7, because it gives you that kind of tail end of you catch London Dungeon at the end of it, and you're kind of like, oh wow, there's more songs, like, you know, like, oh, maybe he jumped on his camera. What'd I do?
No, I'm here.
So I was always wondering about that, if there was any conversation ever about that, why he did the one live song.
I was literally just talking about this with a mystery guest. Who and we were trying to figure that out, and I was he basically said, oh, it's because you know, they probably just wanted to try and like advertise what they were like when they were live or something.
Yeah.
My friend of one of the guys on my channel, Neon Needs, down in New Zealand, always says that he wishes that American Nightmare replaced
would make sense.
Mommy.
Would make sense.
I thought that would be cool.
It was recorded during that session.
Yeah, it's just weird. It's weird to have a live track. I don't know why it's on there. It's probably, again, they're probably putting together Evil Live 2 and decided to add a live track. You know,
so
that sort of thing.
Are you a New York Dolls fan?
I love the New York Dolls. As a matter of fact, I just interviewed Steve Conti, the guitar player for the Reformed New York Dolls, on the channel for Pizza Punk. That'll be a Patreon first episode, and then it'll eventually come out. But Steve is awesome. Told some great New York Dolls stories. Love the New York Dolls. Got to see them once. Awesome. And yeah, great band. R.I.P. Sylvain.
And if you guys are just joining the channel and you're curious, you can go over and support Jeff on his YouTube channel. I have dropped the link there. We're gonna go maybe a couple more minutes here, and dude, I have so many questions for you.
Sure, give me a couple questions. I'll rattle off as many as you can. Go ahead.
So, is the rumor true that Danzig played all of the guitar on Walk Among Us? Is that true?
I mean, I don't exactly know. I'm sure that he didn't. I think Doyle probably played. You know, Walk Among Us has a lot of guitar tracks on it. Yeah. I think a lot of them are Glenn Danzig, and I think maybe 1 or 2 might be Doyle. Mm-hmm. Probably mostly Glenn Danzig. And Glenn has a habit of doing that. Like, for instance, because Mr. Jim was no longer in the band when they were putting out Beware, he has Mr. Jim credited as the drum. I mean, he has Joey Image credited as the drummer. Yes. Even though, you know, half of the songs on what is the Misfits' first actual compilation, it combines Horror Business and Bullet. Although as early as that, Glenn is being a weirdo and like, you know, hey, let's take 1 track away and add a rare ass track called Last Caress. You know, just always thinking about like incentivizing the buyer at all times. So bottom line, I think it's both of them. I think the majority of the tracks are Glenn.
Let's see. Collection 1. Now, I'm trying to clear up the misconception here. Collection 1 is just all what Glenn released, but took out the bass, lowered the bass, the drums, and those mixes, correct? And then Collection 2, he did a lot of overdubs with him and Erie. Is that true? And then they did
Collection. Wait, you're saying in Collection 1 that he what?
So I heard that in Collection 1, he kind of screwed with the mixes, where he turned down like Jerry's bass tracks.
I mean, yeah, they're definitely remixed.
Yeah.
I don't know what the specific details were.
Okay.
For that, but I do know that he those are definitely remixed songs. And they're probably remixed to all sort of, as you can see, they're from various different sessions and with different personnel. So they're all kind of mixed. And if you listen to it, and on some level, when you listen to it, it does kind of feel like a cohesive album.
Yeah.
Start to finish. They're all mixed in that kind of way. It's the same thing with Die Die My Darling is kind of presented almost as like an Earth AD track, even though it was recorded during Walk Among Us.
Right.
With Googie, right?
Glenn
it's almost, yeah.
Glenn played guitar fully on that too. I think he said that in the Thrasher
Did
interview.
Yeah. So there you go. And who's credited as the guitar player for that?
Yeah, Doyle.
Right. And who's credited as the drummer on that? Robo.
Yeah.
So
interesting. It's just so crazy, man.
Yeah, there's so, even with Glenn, there's so much misinformation that he purposely created. And the thing about Glenn is I think Glenn, and this is just my, like, I don't know this for a fact, it's just my surmisation. I think he likes that. I think he likes doing that. I think he likes making everybody wonder. He knows what he's doing on some level. So what else did I have? What do you think was the major progression of their style? I mean, you get kind of that Static Age is their, the first, sessions or whatever. It's very jazzy feel to it. And then, by the time they end with Earth AD, it's this straight up, very aggressive, punk in your face, like almost hardcore sounding. What do you think was that major influence on that progression through their albums? So the Misfits, the scene change. You think it was just like them getting out, playing on the road with different bands, and getting influences from all those bands around them, or? Yeah, well, that's most certainly part of it. But the Misfits from 77 to 83 are really more like 4 or 5 bands. Yeah, the same band, and every time there's a personnel change. Comes, and as well as the changing of the scene, as you said, that's a good point. When those two things happen, the band sort of becomes a completely different band. The Static Age band is completely different than the Walk Among Us band. The Walk Among Us band is even different than the Earth AD band, and that's just the switching of a drummer. And even in that case, the drummer. In a way, actually, the Walk Among Us material is almost the afterthought of what would have been the 12 Hits from Hell stuff. Yes. Right. So then that's them kind of like putting that out almost like not as an afterthought, because they were clearly thinking about it, but it's almost like that's the tail end of that journey that began with Bobby Steele and 12 Hits from Hell, and then that very quickly shifts into Earth AD. And if you talk to Eerie or whoever, they'll tell you that, like, we tried. Eerie's an interesting character who is he's an interesting character, interesting guy. I'll say this, he was very nice. I reached out to him via actually Facebook. I had a lot of conversations with him. I sent him some stuff to sign, which was really nice. He did that for me. He can be very generous with his time, and I'm very grateful for that. I said, hey, I have this podcast. We'd love to have you come on. I literally sat for like weeks and wrote questions. I wanted to make it perfect for him. I wrote back to him, sent him the questions. I kind of told him the format, and he's like, I just don't do live video. I'm just really not interested. And it was a major bummer, because I really wanted him over here, but I respect the fact of, he is who he is. And I'm very thankful for the time that he gave him. And I always left the platform open to him. Like, if you ever want to come over and hang out with us, we'd love to have you on. But, I understand he's got his thing, and it's cool. There's no hard feelings. And I'm very, very appreciative of the stuff that he signed for me, which was like, Eerie is so nice to the fans. Yeah. He's so nice to the fans, and he's so solicitous. There's so many. He's got 100 million people asking him the same questions over and over and over again. And, I if I had the 10 grand when his bass went up, I would have bought that bass. Right. I'll tell you that. History right there. And probably returned it to him at some point. I literally would have. That's nice. Yeah. What were you asking me before, though, about the we were talking about right, the difference in bands. So Eerie has said, Glenn was really into like Gangrene and all these bands up in Boston. They had been listening when Eerie would drive Glenn around. They would listen to that. Bands. Yeah, and they would listen to that stuff. And at the same time, Doyle and Jerry are very into, heavy metal, and sort of the combination of that stuff synthesized, as to what degree and in what proportions, I couldn't tell you. But that's what those things are what led to that. When did I see the original? I never saw the original New York Dolls. The lineup I saw was in 2004. It was David Johansen, Sylvain, Steve Conti. I think it was Sammy Yaffa. It was right after Arthur Killer Kane died. And the drummer was Brian something. I forget his last name. And that was the band I saw opening for the Stooges. Iggy and the Stooges was a great show.
You want to say hi to Jeff?
But hi, Mr. Cat. So
Mr. Jinx.
Mr. Jinx. Yeah. Hi, Mr. Jinx. It's funny. I call my son Joe Jinx.
That's funny.
Nice.
His name's Jordan, but sometimes I call him Joe Jinx. So the band changes every time there's new personnel, and that really there's like 5 bands inside the same band with this core nucleus of Jerry and Glenn. When the band first starts off, before they even record Cough Cool, they sound like the Doors.
Yeah.
The band is totally Doorsed out, man. I mean, they sound. Yeah. You listen to that stuff, and it's like do 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 West End Avenue, West End Avenue, West. It just sounds like Doors, and then you could tell that they're like, we need to be more original, so they strip away those elements. They want to. They kind of also want to chase the Damned and what the Ramones are doing. We need a guitar. So once they add a guitar, that changes things, right? Glenn's influenced by Charles Bukowski and all sorts of beat poetry sort of stuff. He said in many interviews he loves Bukowski, and you can hear that in those early songs. You can hear that in Cough Cool. You can hear that in TV Casualty. You can hear it in Hybrid Moments. All those lyrics come back. All these lyrics are just like they're beat poetry. Theme for a Jackal, Die Sweet Prince, Meat Tastes Like Mints, Spit, Jackal Spit. It's alliteration. That's not my own observation. That's one of the interviews I did. Brought that to my attention. I thought it was fascinating.
Do you know if they ever played songs like In the Doorway or Come Back live? Or
Come Back, they used to play live. Really? In the Doorway, I don't think they ever played live. They might have, but I've never seen any evidence. Come Back was played live, and it was played without a guitar. It was just drums, bass, and piano. I think it was a song that was written on the piano, along with Theme for a Jackal, and I thought those were very, very early songs. Yeah. So you have this evolution. They add the guitar, they drop the piano. It's so interesting because it's like buzzsaw, Ramones guitar, and then that surfing on that is this melodic sort of crooning vocal that's somewhere between Elvis and Jim Morrison and all sorts of things in Everly Brothers, Righteous Brothers, Roy Orbison, all that stuff there is represented. And then what happens is it starts to get very poppy. It goes from doo-wop, from like doo-wop Ramones to like really, really poppy and fast. And that's Walk Among Us. And then it switches over into Earth AD, which is just the combination of
Glenn all the way through.
Well, it's a combination of Jerry and Doyle being into Van Halen, with Glenn writing Samhain material, and it being played way too fast, and that's Earth AD. So the band really does sort of go through, and they also wrote a lot of songs for a punk band, to have 54 compositions, 2 LPs, technically 4 LPs. A slew of singles. I mean, there was a boatload of material. And then, of course, with the sound and music and the changing of the scene, they go from being a New York punk band to being a hardcore band, and they leave New York. They stop playing in New York. And they start going to, the Midwest, where they're loved and accepted in Ohio and Detroit.
They loved them in Detroit.
And they're playing in LA.
Glenn said that during the Cable Access show, that he asked him, where's the best place that you like to play, and he said the Midwest, Detroit.
Right.
He said it.
So you have all that going, and then every time something alters the recipe, the sound changes, and it's an interesting evolution.
Yeah. Oh wow.
One last thing. They lose Bobby Steele and they gain Doyle, and Bobby, when I interviewed Bobby, he said it was like a de-evolution. I think I agree with that statement. They devolved. They went. Suddenly, the songs get too fat. The songs also increase in speed, and then suddenly, all of the melodic qualities of Glenn's voice, they fly out the window, because Glenn, in order to, you need dynamics. You need breaks in between you need breaks in between the stuff. You know what I mean?
Do you think they had to adapt for Doyle's playing style? You know, because Doyle was more of a Ramones type of just, guy,
just downstrokes.
Bobby was more melodic. You know, do you think they had
Bobby, his influence, you could tell, really comes from stuff like Johnny Thunders. You listen to Horror Business and those little like things he's doing, the tremolos he's doing on the necks.
Wow, this is awesome, man. I'm so glad I get to ask you all these questions and hear
glad I can.
This is really cool, man. It's awesome. It's awesome. Real quick, so Misfits Glenn ends Misfits, starts moving into Samhain. Why do you think he goes into this like very progressive, like post-punk goth sound and just says, fuck the kind of the punk rock, and I'm gonna go very, very dark? And at that time you weren't hearing anything like that. And why do you think just that major style change like that? And do you have any maybe opinions of where he got that change from, like what influences he was using to kind of push this new band forward?
Well, having spoken to almost every member of the band Samhain, and from interviews that I've done, like I said, and from what I've read, so from those sources, what I gather in my research is that Glenn is kind of a contrarian kind of guy, and he got tired of doing the Misfits thing for whatever his reasons are.
Right.
And I'm not going to pretend that I know what they are.
Right.
But, he's talked about various factors from, things not working out with those guys anymore, to wanting to do this other thing full time, to wanting to do different music, wanting to remain underground, wanting to do something super out of the box and unique. Listening to bands like Bauhaus and Alien Sex Fiend,
Bauhaus,
the Birthday Party, and all this post-punk death rock sort of stuff, and then sort of fusing it together with hardcore music, or what the Misfits were doing at the end, but sort of slowing things down. I mean, that's how you get songs like Macabre, which is just so out of the box. The Shift. These songs are so weird. Yeah, The Howl. These songs are so weird and angular. They just don't. They don't really make much sense. And Erie has said, "Oh, we didn't play with hardcore bands," but you look at some of those bills. Of course, they were playing with hardcore bands.
Yeah.
Maybe they weren't all meat and potatoes hardcore, but they played with some hardcore bands, and they were like the antithesis of what hardcore was in that kind of way. And if you look at Jerry Montano, who's the Circle of Snakes bass player, he was on the show, and he's put it the best. He said, you tell Glenn, give us more Misfits. And he goes, no, fuck you, I'm going to give you Samhain.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to go from Samhain to Danzig. And then from Danzig 3 comes out, and then Thrall comes out. And they say, okay, give us more Thrall. And he goes, nope, I'm going to do Danzig 4. Okay, give us more Danzig 4. Nope. I'm going to give you Danzig 5. Now I'm going to do Danzig 6. Now I'm going to do, and as I'm saying these album numbers, you're thinking about what that music sounds like. And it's just like that dude just does whatever the fuck he wants. And he's going to always do, it seems he always wants to do the opposite of what everybody is requesting of him.
Yeah.
So that's the nearest I could tell as to why I think maybe he wanted to, or at least motivate. Maybe it might have motivated him to, dive into Samhain. Samhain is one of the most unique, interesting, musical bands out there. They're just so.
There was nothing like it at the time.
Yeah, there's nothing like it. There's still nothing like it. There's very little like it, or if there is something like it, it's derivative of it. It's not. If there is something like it, it's for the sake of Samhain itself. It's like it exists because of Samhain existing. So yeah,
I was gonna say you have Samhain, and then Glenn decides to go off and make Danzig, the Danzig project, and comes out with the first album, and it's crazy because you went from this essentially Misfits, this horror punk band, into kind of a goth sound, and now coming out of Samhain, you have more of kind of the 70s rock vibe. That's kind of what I hear when I hear Danzig 1. And I'm curious to know, do you think that, one, how did Danzig get hooked up with Rick Rubin? And do you think Rick Rubin was the one that had this huge influence on kind of steering them in the direction of this kind of the 70s vibe? I mean, you open up the album, it's a picture of the whole band inside the album. It's very 70s vibe looking. The whole, the whole black and just the Danzig skull, it just kind of has that vibe. Do you think that Rick had kind of that vision and that influence on kind of switching them to that genre of music?
Yeah, well, I think that well, first of all, Rick discovered them
loaded
because,
question. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Rick discovered them during the New Music Seminar in June or July of 1986. They were performing what they didn't realize would be their last, original Samhain show. And Rick set about, I think Rick informed so much of what Danzig 1 would be. I don't think, people call Danzig metal. And maybe later on they're very metal, but those first couple albums are just hard rock. They're just straight up hard rock albums. Yes, they have, a metal guitarist, but the songs themselves are not really metal. They're hard rock songs, or they're, I don't know. They sort of span. I mean, there's some dark Jim Morrison vibes that are going on. There's a lot of Black Sabbath vibes, which are, metal. You consider Black Sabbath to be metal, but they're also kind of proto-metal, right? Like they're kind of still kind of hard rock. It was the first, maybe the first couple albums. So, I mean, Danzig is just like a return to that original Black Sabbath sound by way of AC/DC, by way of, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think Rick Rubin, was like, let's strip away all the spooky atmosphere shit. And, you can see it. You can see. And I mean, listen, Danzig is finally hitting the big leagues, and so they're maybe they're a little bit more impressionable, than previously when they had done. These guys have been doing everything independently for the last 10 years, and they've done it effortlessly and easily on their own. It's not like they, it seems like it's more about like just expanding to go bigger. It has nothing to do with like necessarily knowing how, but maybe, Rick has ideas that maybe they're appealing to Glenn, and that's why Glenn's decided to do it. I don't know. I don't actually know.
That's fair. That's fair.
And I mean, really, the truth matters. You hear it in the music. You hear it in the music. The shift from, all you got to do is look at the songs on Final Descent. You can look at Twisted Cain and Possession. And you can see how Samhain they are and what Danzig's idea was for them. And then you look at them afterwards and you can see how Rick Rubin's influence transforms them.
They were fast on Final Descent. I mean, the original like Twisted Cain was very fast. I mean, it was very
it's a lot faster. It's the guitar is sort of chugging along. They're just two different approaches to those songs. I prefer the Samhain Twist of Cain, and I prefer the Possession by Danzig. So
are you a fan, and are you a fan of any of those the Danzig albums? Okay.
I listen to everything. I don't really care much for 5 or 6.
For me it was the original guys for that band, and then once it kind of and I know that I have to be very careful what I say here, but for me as a fan, it was the original 4. And it's funny,
4 albums.
In my older age, I'm 44 years old, so now going back and listening to the first album, honestly, and I got to say this, the first Danzig album is probably one of my top 100 albums of all time. I think it's a very unappreciated album. It fucking kicks ass and wails all the way through. And I'll tell you, as a rock album, it's so underappreciated. And I always tell people, if you love Black Sabbath and that type of AC/DC, that type of groove, you have to listen to this album. I'm telling you. And it to me, it's like Back in Black. It's like, it's just, it's a great album. It really is a great album.
I hear that.
And it laid the framework, for them. And then he comes back with Lucifuge, and it's just like, holy shit. Like, it's just crazy. It's good stuff.
Great 1-2 punch.
Yeah. Let's see, before we wrap this up, I'm going to ask a silly question. Danzig, Hall of Fame or no? Or does he give a shit?
Oh, I don't think he gives a shit. Should Danzig be in the Hall of Fame? I think maybe if anybody's going to be in the Hall of Fame, it should be the Misfits. The fact that the New York Dolls, the MC5, and the Bad Brains all get snubbed by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame year after year, I don't think the Misfits will ever get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but they also kind of don't need to. Their Hall of Fame is the fact that their Crimson Ghost and the people who cover the Misfits songs and the amount of influence the Misfits have had on music is so vast and so I always try to be cautious about how high I rank the Misfits' influence, but it's just really high. I always say that the Ramones are second after the Beatles. I hesitate to put the Misfits so high up, but they are. Yeah, it's high up. It is high up. They're really, really influential. That to me is all the Hall of Fame that they need, or probably care about. Would they accept it? I'm sure they would if they were given to it. I don't think the Academy or whoever, the voters, I don't think they would ever list the Misfits. They probably would all be long dead and gone before they get on there.
I just thought my curiosity was, with Danzig for so many years, over the years going, I'm never going to do it again. Don't ask me about Misfit stuff. And now, we're seeing over the last couple of years, he is doing it. And I was wondering if he's trying to expand that legacy to get into the criteria for the Hall of Fame. And that's why I was wondering if he just keeps doing this,
well,
obviously
I'm
for
not,
the fans.
I'm not Danzig, and
right.
I'm not the mouthpiece of Danzig, so
right.
I don't know what he thinks or what he knows.
Speculation.
But totally speculation. Yeah. But in one scenario, he's making millions of dollars. The other one is just an award. So
of course.
I don't know where he falls on it. Maybe he cares about it. Maybe he doesn't. I think Jerry would love to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I'd imagine, and so would Doyle. And they would. Their Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was being the punk band who sold out Madison Square Garden. With the Damned opening after they opened for the Damned 40 years earlier. That's the pinnacle of this band. It's already peaked. If you were at that show, you saw the pinnacle peak of this band. Whatever they do from here on out, nothing will compare to that historic show and how impactful it was.
So let's end on this one. I don't know, Jeff, do you want to take this one? I know about it. I've seen the video. So Laura's asking, what was the beef with Glenn and the Northside Kings?
Well, I did a 3-hour video about this topic with actually the guy from Keep On Danzig, JW. During the Super Bowl, I was like, what's the one topic that I could do on my channel that I could use to compete with the Super Bowl? Obviously, nothing can compete with the Super Bowl. We just thought we would be jokers and be like, fuck the Super Bowl. Let's talk about this instead. So we talked about it. We did a Zapruder-esque analysis. For those of you who don't know who Zapruder is, he's the guy who shot the JFK filmed the JFK assassination accidentally. And that film was used in like all the, analysis back and to the left. So we did like our own like.
Oh, you broke it down.
Right. So we did a back and to the left with the Danzig. So if you have 3 hours to kill, go check that out.
Okay.
We cover it super in depth. Bottom line, it's just those guys. I don't know. Those guys were filming themselves.
Yep.
Filming the dude confronting Glenn, and here's what's interesting. I don't. Where's the rest of the footage? It's been how many years? It's been almost 20 years. You're telling me that like none of this other footage is ever leaked? Just this one little itty bitty portion of the footage. Right. Why is that? That's what I want to know. You think that all this stuff would have eventually come out? First. It was just this one little clip because these guys thought that or apparently were trying to clear their name of being accused of pulling a knife on Danzig. So something like that. So they released this footage. But in all honesty, it just seems like a bunch of dudes who thought they were going to get uber famous for decking Danzig. Yeah. It's a viral video before the age of YouTube. It went viral before that. it begins this era of people making fun of Glenn Danzig on the internet because he takes himself so seriously. The reality is this guy's a friggin' giant, Goomba, like just friggin'
a nobody.
He's just a giant Mameluke, like with his big friggin' like paw, slugging a guy who's like 50 years old, like a short guy who's 50 years old. Of course he's going to win. Like, it's just not even that's just stupid. So, it's not even about being a Danzig apologist or a Danzig fan. It's just when you look at the whole situation, it just seems really crummy. And I invite everybody to, really, I just don't have the bandwidth or energy to talk about what was said in those 3 hours, but there's a lot of detailed information there. And even the guy himself, he commented on the video, the guy who punched Danzig. I forgot what he said. You could find his comment. He saw the video and watched it as well and commented. And yeah, I didn't even respond to it. I don't know. But we did the best we could to sort of make sense of what had happened. We looked at a lot of stories from people who were supposedly there, and we used the allegedly the whole time because you can't really trust YouTube comments for the truth. But it was just us trying to paint a fuller picture. And the one thing I will say, last thing I will say about it is this. Do you where's the promoter in all of this? Like the fact that Glenn is being confronted by an opening band over something that really he, whether he's being a diva or whether he's, trying to screw over this other band, you're not going to find it. It's so deep, dude. It's
I'm just saying. I was actually going to use this for a plug at the end here. When we finish.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
of course.
You.
Yeah. Of course.
He just, they wanted attention. They were trying to, they were like, they figured that they were doing a documentary project, which is why they had the camera. Wouldn't it be really great if I punched Danzig in the face? Exactly. In the face, that sort of thing. So who knows? Well,
Jeff, thank you so much for coming over and hanging out with us this evening. If you guys want to check out Jeff's channel, please go over and subscribe to his channel. As you can see, I am subscribed. I follow his channel. He is a plethora of knowledge, all things Danzig, Misfits, punk rock, food. He does everything over there. Lots of interesting content. Anything else you want to plug, Jeff? Please.
Just check out, subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's the primary thing. We do have a great group on Facebook that Brian said he's a part of it. It's the They Came From Lodi group, and it's a very sort of relaxed group. We don't have many rules in there. Got a great mod team. If you really, really want to dive deep, that's what the Patreon is for. You can become a YouTube member alternatively if you don't like the Patreon ecosystem. Although I recently switched all my videos. I had them all on Vimeo. I switched them all over to YouTube now because people just really do not like Vimeo. They just hate using it. So everything's on Vimeo. Everything's on YouTube now, which is a lot easier to watch stuff on. And that's it, man. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, all that Linktree bullshit is all there somewhere. If you see me live chatting, jump in the chat. I always try to include and engage everybody as much as I can, as long as it's not deviating too far from the subject. And that's really it. I just want to thank Brian and Primo for having me on their show. I really appreciate you guys showing interest. And again, just want to emphasize, I am like not any sort of official authority on any of these things. I'm just a sort of fan. I'm a fan, I guess amateur historian trying to make a documentary about this stuff casually, and just have knowledge that I like to pontificate on, and that's it.
Motion VIP says it's been an honor for your time.
Thank you,
Jeff.
Motion
Thank
VIP.
you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, Jeff. Again, thank you so much for hanging out with you. Again, this was kind of like I wanted to do this. I have to admit, it's kind of a selfish stream for myself to have you come over because I knew you were a big Misfits guy, and I wanted to come over here and just really get some perspective on.
No worries. Anytime.
And I want to appreciate everybody this evening hanging out in the chat, and we will see you guys next Sunday. I'm going to hit the outro, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.